So where do you see your music career going in the next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, maybe even 5 to 10 years?
The next 5 to 10 years, Kärma's fan base is going to grow exponentially, and she's going to be doing her thing as an independent artist. I do not plan to sign to any major label unless it's completely and utterly worth it, just because I've realized how much I'm able to contribute to my career just off of my own back and off my own footwork. A lot of the things that labels provide is things that artists that don't necessarily have access to. And I feel like if I could do it on a smaller scale, then I could do it on a larger scale if I just keep going and just strategize properly. So definitely gonna see me on a billboard in a couple of years, and you know, maybe on the radio. I mean, it's given top 100. But yeah, that's where I see myself.
I put my dreams on hold. I keep my eyes on froze. I hold it down 10 toes. I'm out the way so low. I can't be seen, no, 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 no. No, I can't be seen, no, 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 no. I got a dream to grow. I cry and
Sure. I'm a singer, songwriter, engineer from Jersey City, and I'm just everything R&B. I was a singer since I was like 8 years old. I feel like all singers start when they're really young. Grew up in church, and you know the whole backstory with that, and R&B singers growing up in church, singing in the choir, and that's how I began. And of course, like, my family has a background in music also. My grandfather was a part of Kool and the Gang, and he also wrote songs for Michael Jackson and Vanessa Williams. I don't know if most people know who Vanessa Williams is, but but yeah, so it's kind of always been like a background thing for me. But then, like, I guess around like puberty, like 12, 13, I was like, okay, this is something that I want to do. I grew up listening to so much different types of music. Like, they had like records and cassette tapes, and it was highly encouraged, basically. Yeah, I didn't get any backlash from making secular music, so they would say.
Most recent project, Faint of Heart. What was your inspiration for that? And can you tell me what Faint of Heart actually means?
Faint of Heart is basically explaining what it means to be in a weak state of mind, explaining what it means to be weak emotionally, and pretty much just like highlighting all of the feelings within that state, you know, like being faint of heart. Like, the saying is like, this is not for the faint of heart, so this isn't for the weak, you know. But I feel like I showed strength within being able to be vulnerable with a lot of the lyrics on the project. So I feel like it was a nice twist to the original saying. You know what I'm thinking? You remember the song that I let you hear before we started, and it kind of like transitioned.
It goes into it, right?
Right, into it, yeah, like it drop into the key. Yeah, exactly. Like, I think because this ends with like the keys, that would be a good like transition for me. The inspiration was just literally my personal life. I feel like everyone was going through a transition during like COVID, and you know, everybody was just trying to figure out themselves, and we had so much time in solitude. That was the perfect time for me to take a second away from music and really just figure out what I needed to figure out. Like, I was stressed out, and music has always been my outlet, but I needed to really like push myself to dig a little deeper. And I feel like lyrically, content wise, this project is the most introspective out of everything that I've put out so far.
What are some other ways that you like tried to cope with your emotions during that time?
I started to get heavy into yoga around like May of 2020. So, and then from then to now, like, that's something that I still do on a regular basis. I felt like I needed to dig a little deeper into like ways to kind of just get in tune with myself. I'm in therapy now, so that's also a new chapter for me. Once I went, I was like, oh yeah, this is the shit. Like, this is shit. I need to be here right now.
Do you find it hard sometimes to balance, I guess, like your music career and like your personal life, or do you find yourself intertwining the two a lot?
So I work in higher education in DEI, which is a lot, and it's heavy on the mental. Bringing like all sides of myself to the core instead of like trying to keep that separation is just making it more seamless for me. So
yeah, and I feel like that's something that a lot of creatives struggle with, even myself. Like I have my 9 to 5, then I have styling, I have the life they present, all of that. So it's a lot.
But I think what made it difficult for me was not intertwining them, because once I started to do that, I'm like, I took a lot of pressure off of myself, you know. My recording process is quite interesting. So I usually start with like instrumentals. I usually get like synth packs from producers that I work with, and I'll choose the best out of the pack and listen to what inspires me, and then whatever inspires me, sometimes I'll start freestyling a whole verse, sometimes I'll have a hook in mind, sometimes I'll just have a melody, and I'll always record it on my phone as I'm doing it so that I could keep the idea, and if I want to go back and change and rewrite stuff, you know, things like that. So usually I'll start with a melody or freestyling. Now it's turned into more freestyling. Like I'm just that lit. I can just do it off the top. But no, I'll start freestyling and I'll record myself while I'm doing that. And I'll listen to the cadence and I'm like, all right, I'm changing the words around though. So then I'll go in and refine it and fix it and structure it and figure out, an ad-lib here or a harmony here, or like, you know, just really like get into the process. But that's usually how it goes for me. You have the ear to kind of hear what is going to make sense together and what's going to stick to people. Like being an engineer, you know all the tricks and tips to catch people's attention with like audio effects and just the certain frequencies that you have to look out for and train your ear to. So I feel like I know how my voice needs to sound. I know what needs to be accentuated, what needs to be in the background, what needs to be subtle, what needs to be loud. And I grew up watching a lot of black films too. The best thing aside from the film was the soundtrack. That colorfulness that they add to all of the records is really something that stuck with me. So when I use my engineering skills and my songwriting skills, everything just kind of happens at the same exact time.
What was the inspiration behind Coop Diaries? I've been bumping that one a lot the past couple of days, and I'm like, okay, this one hits.
Coop Diaries actually is a very obvious, typical explanation. I drive a coupe, and I like to spend a lot of time in my car. That's my baby. That's my safe space. And you just have your moments where you let down your guard and you pour it all out, you spill it all out. I just needed a safe space to exist. So I went in my car and I cried first, and then I listened to the instrumental, and I had the melody in mind, but I never finished writing the song until the beginning of this year. It was pretty much about the struggles that I was dealing with friends, with, like I said before, heartbreak. I was having issues with my mom at the time, and the skit that comes before Coop Diaries is Jason Said, which directly has something to do with Coop Diaries. So it's like you kind of get a little story there, but it's just a very tough song for me. That was probably the hardest one for me to actually listen back to once it was done, because of the content, like because of what I was talking about. Like I was literally crying while I was recording that song. So yeah, it gets that deep.
It feels just so organic and authentic, and I feel like that's why it resonates with both myself and other people. Like I'm like, yeah, this one I can relate to. I'm feeling that. You're mentioning of the skits. Are those, I guess, excerpts of your life? Like, Okay.
Won't Catch Me Slipping, which is an extension of Catch Up. I was having a conversation with my grandmother, and she was telling me, like, I don't want to quote her word for word on the skit, but she was like, it's like you have a plate of food and you got rice, chicken, beans. You don't really want this right now, but this is what you got in front of you. But then later on, you just ride it out and you take what you could get. You're going to get what you want later. She's like, the same thing with men. Don't settle. Just wait. And I felt like I spoke to about the heartbreak earlier, like that was a conversation she just came out of nowhere and was talking to me about. Like I didn't tell her what I was going through. So I feel like divine timing, like, you know, I felt like that was something I needed to record. And then it just so happened to end up on the album. My first live show I did with Alvy and Daryl. They're both Jersey artists. And basically we met on Twitter. We did a song like over the internet, like sending it back and forth. I had never met them in person. They told me like, hey, one day we gonna perform this, blah, blah, blah. I was like, send me the address. I pulled up literally when it was time for me to grab the mic. I couldn't give nobody a hug, say hello, how you doing, shake a hand, nothing. As soon as I walked through the door, I had to grab the microphone, step on stage and perform. I didn't know what I was doing. I had never done it before. In a setting like that, at least. Like I've done like talent shows in high school and, you know, little stuff like that, but it's completely different when you're performing your own work, original stuff in front of, you know, people that you don't know. So anyway, I didn't know what I was doing, but I just fell right into the chemistry that they already had, and I saw how turned that they were, and I was like, okay, let me just hop in real quick and sing my little part, and I was like, okay, I can do this. Like this ain't bad. It was nerve-wracking as hell, but I think it was a good performance for my first time, at least. No performance is gonna be exactly how you rehearse it. It don't matter how well you practice. Even with Beyonce, like somebody that's on her level of stardom and that's has the amount of longevity that she has in her career, there's still hiccups that happen, right? Or sometimes your adrenaline takes over and you forget something that you rehearsed and you do something different. So I feel like it's just the anticipation and the overall, like me just practicing and making sure that I'm at my best. That's what gets me pumping. My peers and the people that I'm going to be leaning on and listening to for inspiration, I want them to make me want to go and get inspired to make some crazy dope shit. Well, I feel like art is a big influence on the day-to-day. I feel like for me, not growing up in where I come from Jersey City, in an urban hood area, and like it wasn't too much to be inspired by. So what I would do is bury myself in music, and I feel like that is what made me feel like I could be a singer. That's what made me feel like I could go and do things in front of a bunch of people. That is what inspired me to, you know, just like I feel like music is realistic, but it's just like painting a beautiful picture that kind of enhances the reality of what somebody's feeling. Like I could say I'm sad, but then I could say I feel like the color blue and I need a warm hug and a snug love, and like, you know what I'm saying, like just to stretch it and just really, really make somebody feel like, damn, that hit my soul. I feel like that's what art does for me in my life, and hopefully that's what my art does for other people that are listening to it, you know.
This party is a shit show. I know you wanna come over to me. You've been stalking me since I walked in with my hips swinging right. Cup in my left hand, booty sitting nice like an hourglass. Sick of hearing before I let go. And you tired of all these weak bitches with the same ass and the same clothes and the same story about how they on that hot girl shit. Anyway you see I'm that bitch, and I know you know that I know that I ain't taking it slow. I see you looking unbothered. To me you're ready to go. Let's get into something nice. Ain't no we can't do. Tonight I think I found what I'm looking for. My fly personality, big chin, like I ought to be. Got you like, yeah. Ooh, you know they can't fuck with me. Ooh, fly personality, big chin, like I ought to be. You know they can't fuck with me. It's 2 and I'm on drink number 4. We spent the last hour and 45 talking about what's on your mind. And you thought you were slick with your hand up on my thigh, but I like it. Boy, don't be scared to let your body flow into mine. Say you don't like the dance, but my thighs could change your mind. Know what I want, so come inside, and I'll make it worth your while. My fly personality, chillin', like I ought to be. Fucking with me, baby. Touching me, ooh, touching me. Fly personality, chillin', like I ought to be. Ooh, you know they can't fuck with me, touch me, but they wanna touch me. Fly personality, big chillin', like I ought to be.
I was angry. I was so mad. Like, toxic cycles and stuff like that's what that song is basically about, and being misunderstood, and just like you fighting your way to be seen for who you really are. And that's what Catch Up was about to me. Like, I felt like, catch up. Like, you know, you got to catch up to where I am spiritually, like emotionally. Like, you have to catch up, but I'm not gonna wait around to see if you do. Yeah. So
I just want to thank everybody again for tuning in to episode 5 of The Life They Present. And I want to thank Kärma for being such a great guest today.
So I got about the way, yeah. Not cause I ain't coming back, you ain't got nothing to say, like, boys, I playing with my head, you know I can't take no more.